Assalamu alaikum everyone. You're watching Multicultural Civic Platform. My name is Rimsha.
My name is Iman, and today we're joined here by our special guest, Shahina Siddiqui. She's the Executive Director and also the founder of Islamic Social Service Association. She's also a writer, an author, and a spiritual counselor. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Can you talk a little bit about yourself, kind of what you do, and
Well, first of all, I'm a grandmother, and as you said, I founded the Islamic Social Services Association in Canada with 3 American sisters in 1999, and I'm still running the Canadian chapter. I'm a freelance writer. I love to write, and also build community. When I came in 1976 to Canada, we came straight to Winnipeg and settled here. So I am busy working, building communities. With Islamic Social Services, we incubated the Canadian Muslim Women's Institute, which is now on its own. We also founded the Canadian Muslim Leadership Institute, which is still under our umbrella. And we are now in the process of establishing Muslim Institute for Muslim Mental Health, which is going to be a national organization. So there's a lot of stuff we do, especially human rights work and peace centers and anti-racism work. We work very closely with the Indigenous community, building reconciliation between Indigenous and Muslim communities here in Canada. So, yeah, it keeps me busy.
Wow, mashallah, you're very busy. So you are the Executive Director of ISSA, Islamic Social Service Association. Tell us more about ISSA and how it's important to our Muslim community.
See, when I was working nationally with different organizations way back in the 1980s, we were noticing that there were a lot of social issues, family issues that were coming up across Canada and the United States, but the Muslim community was not equipped to respond to it. Mm-hmm. We were busy building mosques. We still are. I don't know how many we need. And we are still building schools, and that was the focus. But what we were missing is that our communities, our families had issues that were not being addressed. Mm-hmm. And so 4 sisters, we got together at a ISSA convention. It's a Muslim organization, one of the first in Canada. Mm-hmm. And we said we have to do something. Yeah. So 3 of the sisters had their PhDs in social work. I was the only lay person from Canada. Okay. And I said, we'll do it. So next year we called a conference in Washington. We had about 40 to 50 professionals, social workers, psychiatrists, psychologists, Muslim, who got together. And they said, yes, we have to do something. So that is when at that conference we established Islamic Social Services. There was a lot of conversation of the acronym, right? Mm-hmm. And so people wanted to call it Muslim Social Services and others. And we said, no, the acronym is ISSA. That's Prophet Isa, who was the best of social workers, right? Mm-hmm. So we decided on that. The American, they got their charitable status within a few months. We didn't get it till 3 years later. That's another battle we had to fight. But we founded it in April, and interestingly, the same year 9/11 happened. So the entire focus of at least ISSA Canada changed. And I was also one of the founding members of NCCM, CARE Canada at that time. Now it's called the National Council of Canadian Muslims. So we became very, very busy responding to media, keeping an eye on a lot of stuff. So within 48 hours of 9/11, I had done 72 interviews, locally, nationally, internationally, while writing letters, responding to op-eds, writing op-eds. Because we were just 3-4 people at NCCM at that time, very small organization, but thrown into into media. I had no training for media. My father was a journalist for 45 years with Associated Press, so he had taught me some stuff. But writing is my passion, and standing up for justice. So I was compelled to do it.
Yeah. So during, in 9/11 at that time, you said you had 72 interviews in like the first 48 hours. What were your kind of thoughts? Do you remember, like, what were you thinking while that was
The most
on?
interesting thing is that within 10 minutes or 5 minutes of what happened, I was woken up. At that time, I used to sleep in. And I got a call from one of the media stations. They said, Shahina, have you seen what's happened? And I said, no. They said, well, go open your TV. And, there was no internet or all that stuff. So go open the TV and we'll call you in 5 minutes. And I did, and I saw, and I was in shock like everybody else. And of course, the phone rang in 5 minutes. And the first question asked of me was, why did they do it? And I said, what? 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. This little old lady in Winnipeg, you're asking her, why did they do it? And I said to them, well, you know what? They didn't consult me because I'm not on their board. So that gave me an indication, because my father had trained me in unpacking the language and to understand what's behind a question. And to go to the heart of it. So I knew the trend that was coming. So the next year we called a conference in Montreal on Canadian Muslims in North America, SOS. Because SOS is a call for there is a crisis. And so again, mental health professionals and social workers, we all presented our papers talking about what's coming. People are not paying attention that time as to what was coming. Unfortunately, it came, and it is still on. So there was a lot of learning on the job. Nobody, I never have used talking points. So what to say, what to do. I remember one of the reporters that came to the mosque during 9/11 and were wanting to ask questions. And they asked me, so who is this Allah? And I said, oh my God, you were sent to do an interview at a mosque. So I just said, okay, let's go. And we sat in the office at the MIA First Mosque. And I spent half an hour just giving her some points, because it was not her, the producer should have trained her. But what was interesting is that gave me an insight into how little people knew. We assume people know, but they don't. And so it became our responsibility to tell, to teach, to educate, and still doing that education today.
So what are some challenges that you face as a Muslim woman, like maybe with hijab and just in general? Well,
when I got involved in the community, which was MIA, at that time there was no other Muslim organization, and I volunteered to be an outreach person. I have never been on their board or any official position, but I said, you know what, there needs to be an outreach. Nobody is doing that, so I made up my own card. I had a briefcase that was empty when I would go to government and others and schools and colleges and started the outreach. So I think the challenges that I faced were first in the community. The community was not ready to have a woman presenting or representing. So that was a challenge, and I think it is mentioned in Ismail's book about, but we never gave up. There was a group of us who said, no, Allah has given us these rights, and they are not going to take it away. And I had my husband's support. As a woman, you can't do that, be so out. And then the community slowly has started to understand that that's needed. And then after 9/11, the mainstream. always being asked why. I think the first death threat I got was 1 month after 9/11. Envelope was dropped in my mailbox because there was no address or stamp. So I knew somebody had done that, had come to my husband was at that time the president of Manitoba Islamic Association. So I call him, it is 9 o'clock in the night, and I said, where are you? He says, I'm in a meeting at MIA. And I said, well, I just received this death threat, and it was 3 pages of what they would do to me and my children. They didn't know I only have one son who was away. So he says very calmly, well, I'm in a meeting, you know, when I'm back, we can talk about it. And I'm going, oh, dear Lord. Everybody who knows my husband knows he's very, very calm. So of course I called RCMP, and they were there in 5 minutes. The police was there, they took the fingerprints, because I was already the member of the RCMP Advisory Committee on Diversity, both here and nationally. So it was an interesting experience for me, but it was hard, it was difficult. But there has been continuous for the last 25 years. It's always hate mail. Actually, at my office, we have a folder that calls it fan mail. So we consider it our fan mail. But getting it from both ends, not only within outside, but within the community as well. So a lot of challenges, but you know, as a Muslim, I believe when Allah puts you through these challenges, your capacity increases and you get stronger. So my advice to all of you young people is don't give up. Or every challenge is a learning opportunity.
Okay. You've mentioned about your personal challenges, and you're very integral to our Muslim community. I also wanted to follow up with that question and ask you, what are the challenges facing our community?
You know, in Muslim community in general, if we had to talk just about it, because when I mention community, I mean Winnipeg community.
Okay.
We have to understand that we are Canadians. There is no back home for me. Okay, I burned my bridges. I burned my ships. I'm here. I'm a grandmother. My parents are buried here. My son is buried here. My family is living here. We need to change our focus from Muslim community to Canadian community. We should be building Canada with the strengths that we bring, the wisdom that we bring of 1,500 years of evolution of the Islamic thought. And the second, of course, is just don't talk about my community. Recognize that Canada is built on injustices that were done to the indigenous people of this land.
Yes.
How can I expect justice for myself while I don't stand up for justice for others? Okay. So my focus and the focus of our organization is not about just Muslim. I counsel people from every faith. They come to me even though I'm not a professional. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I do spiritual counseling because they feel safe. We don't other people because you and I know what it feels like to be the other. Because on September 10th, 1990, I went to sleep a Canadian. On September 11th, I woke up the other. Okay? So my advice to our community, first of all, to the Muslim community, is start reaching out. Stop talking about my issue, look at others' issue. That will build empathy in you, that will make you sensitive, that will make you acceptable to people who don't understand what's going on, who we are, what we are. I'll give you a simple example. I used to host all the scholars that came to Winnipeg for different conferences. They always stayed in our home. And one day there was an indigenous person who had come to speak in Winnipeg. And Winnipeg has done very pioneer work in a lot of stuff. And at breakfast time, he said to me, sister, he was Cherokee from the United States. And he said, sister, I can never forgive Muslims who came to North America. And I just looked at him and I thought, Why, brother? He said, because you kept Islam to yourselves. To me that day it was an eye-opener. I was very young. I didn't have that much. But I realized, wow, you know, this message was sent to me for a reason. Because we do close ourselves up, right?
Yes.
Because we are so afraid. The issues that I counsel with parents, breakup of marriage, divorce, domestic violence, you name it, is always showing me that we cannot work in a silo.
So as the number of Muslims rise and they continue to rise, and how do you think, you mentioned the challenges, but how do you think we could improve and make, possibly make services better? What do you think?
Beta, one thing that I have noticed, and I speak nationally, travel across Canada and United States training people on this, is do not reinvent a wheel, okay? Learning from other communities. Expand your expertise. So if, for example, there is an organization that is doing social services or an organization that is doing education and theology or running a help and support each other and empower each other rather than saying, oh, they are doing it, I'll do it too. What it does, it fragments us, right? It makes us scattered and it takes away the resources. So we should now be mature enough to say, okay, we have one Islamic school, maybe we could expand it so that we can have it up to high school. Can we all work together to do that? And if we see a need there is for another school, let us come to a consensus about it. That's the maturity that we need in our community. Right now we are still very, we play a lot of politics because we are not confident enough in us, in our own abilities, or we are fragmented culturally. There are 56 cultures represented in Winnipeg of Muslim community. And everybody wants their own mosque, and everybody, so are we really a community? Remember the hadith of the Prophet, how do you tell you are a community? That if the little finger is damaged, hurt, the whole body feels the pain. Ask yourselves, and I ask this question to myself almost every day, do I feel the pain of my community, no matter where they are, what they're doing, right? So we have a long way to go before we say we are a community. We are communities and not a community, because a community empowers each other, supports each other. There is no competition, there is no ego, right? Controlling our ego is the biggest thing, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
That's my advice to your generation. When we were a smaller community, it was easier. My son grew up in one mosque. Every culture, every madhab was there, and now my grandchildren have a challenge because of the diversity. So as much as diversity is our strength, if we do not know how to come together, it becomes a weakness.
Oh, I love that, yeah.
That's true. You spoke about education and schools. You're one of the founder of Al-Hijra Islamic School. What motivated you to to open up an Islamic school in Winnipeg, the first Islamic school in Winnipeg? And why do you think it's critical and it's important for our children to have an Islamic school?
Way back then, Islamic school was a need, not just that it was going to, because the idea of an Islamic school was a madrasa where we teach Quran and whatnot. We wanted an integrated school system, just like the Catholic schools, Jewish schools, So it was a parochial school, but within the Manitoba curriculum. And so I remember when I did the first with another sister and a young man, both we said, what do we do first? Because I was learning from attending very different trainings, was we have to do an environmental scan, right? So at the Eid prayer, we had forms typed up do you think we need a, just to show the government where there is a need. 90% of the forms filled said, yes, we need an Islamic school. Now we had a strength. Then I called a meeting, a strategic planning meeting, which I had done for MIU. The first strategic planning we had, it was in the 1980s with our late brother, Wahid Mustafa. And I told them, this is how you do strategic planning. You break the community. And I'd given them a workshop. I'd written the notes for the president of the MIA at that time. So we had 3 strategics. So do we need a school, social services, and MIA moving forward? Alhamdulillah, that was a great success as well. So we did this for the school. And once we had that, then we did a workshop. In the beginning, we had less than 20 students. Okay. We had a very diverse board again. And we rented 3 classrooms. And we did that. Dr. Mujibur Rahman, the late Dr. Mujibur Rahman was one of them, Abdul Al-Tasi, Waji Zaid, my husband and I, and Saira Rahman as well. And we said, okay, let's do it. So from 20 students, we are now to 250 students. We have our own building. I then left the board after many, many years because I had to concentrate on ISSA. So there was a need. The community agreed that there was a need. The government supported us because at that time, as long as you had maybe 6 students, you could, the board approved our curriculum. And the good thing about Al-Hijra Islamic School was that we made it a point that every teacher has to be registered, which was not the case in some schools across Canada, which has now changed. And so, alhamdulillah, all these years later, 1996 was when we incorporated the school, and it is still functioning and growing. So, yeah, alhamdulillah.
That's nice.
Praise be to Allah, because you can just try. Rest is in Allah's hands.
So I know you've accomplished so much and you've achieved so much and you've done so much, but right now, like, what is something you're really passionate about, like, currently?
Currently is the Institute for Muslim Mental Health.
Okay.
And the impact of Islamophobia and how it is getting embedded, is already embedded in our system. But right now my passion for the larger Winnipeg. The Winnipeg I came to in '74 just to visit my sister in Brandon from New York. I was living in Manhattan with my husband. We were newlyweds. She brought us to Winnipeg to impress us with the big city. And I looked at my husband and I whispered, I said, this is where we'll bring up our children. This is where I want to live. This city has a soul. To this day, I feel our city has a soul. We never moved anywhere, whether we were given big offers or whatever, because this was our home. But right now we are in crisis in Winnipeg. The poverty, the homelessness. I had never ever seen what I see at bus stops in the shelters. The number of youth issues that I'm seeing within our community as well and as the larger community. And I'm very sad about it. I speak a lot on that subject, I write a lot on that, but I think as a Winnipeg, we have to bring all sectors, all peoples, all faiths together for a city-wide conversation. I've written about this as well, and I've been approached by different churches and different organizations that we should be doing this, because if your neighbor's house is burning, you are not safe either. You can't be a spectator, right? And that's the case in Winnipeg right now. And we are all turning away. We live in suburbs. I go to downtown every day for work. And I can tell you things are very, very bad, worse than they have ever been. Crimes rate is up. So violence because of mental health issues. That is why we thought we have to do this institute, to bring everybody from across Canada and the United States. We did 1 year of interviews across North America with our professionals and imams and social workers, and they all said, we need this, because an ordinary person just going to the masjid and praying do not know what is happening underground, right? The rise of violence, addictions in our community is rising, and in Winnipeg in general. So to me, the little time that I'm left on this earth is to make Winnipeg what I know it can be, and I know what it was and still is. But yeah, something is not working.
Okay. Well, you have many years of experience working with communities, and particularly Islamic communities. Do you have anything to share, or like any advice to our viewers, and to learn something from you, from your experience?
I don't know if first of all, I know very little. I rely on the Creator, on Allah, for guidance. Every day we are improving. We should be improving ourselves. One advice that my grandmother gave me, which I live by, she was my mentor, is that every night when you go to sleep, before you go to sleep, ask yourselves, did you do any good today? Did you hurt anyone? Did you make a difference in somebody's life? And if you can answer those questions truthfully, and then make because we don't have a choice not to be involved. People think, you know, Allah chose us to be here. We think we plan to be here. No. Why? Because we have a role to play. So stop thinking about just the Muslim community, start thinking about the human community. Let us look at each other as valuable members of Allah's creation. Talk about the climate, look at the environment, get involved, roll up your sleeves and get in there. You know, there are days when I work 24 hours, because even sometimes there are crises in California, somebody will call me, that time is very, but for women it's even harder, and for men if they are involved in their family. So you need that support. You need to feel that, but I think that trust in Allah, so please come together for the common good, come together and do your best, and don't get disheartened. I have never been disheartened. I have been upset. We are human beings, why wouldn't we be, or sad? But I perk up like this the minute I call on Allah. I am okay. So I would like everyone to think as this one human community that is trying to do the best that we can and what we are required to do. So develop yourself, look at your biases, work through those biases, then come out on this world stage and do something.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your valuable time. We appreciate your time. And that's it for us.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. If you like the content, share, subscribe. Thank you so much. We'll see you another time. Thank you.